have taken the House, but it's not a blue wave at all, and we need to talk about where things go from here. So, the obvious place to start is with all of the investigations that the House Democrats will now push for. Mother Jones put together a short list based on the concerns of House Intelligence Committee Democrats, which includes such things as Trump's now disbanded Voter Fraud Commission, Trump Russia, which is amazingly still being thrown around, the firing of James Comey, Michael Cohen's payments, and Trump's own tax returns. And I'm not going through all of these individual claims in this video, but I've covered some of them before on the channel. Now, the Trump-Russia investigation is about as close to a witch hunt as you can get, especially when you have the people investigating the case completely pushing all Democrat collusion to the side. I mean, they're ignoring collusion with the UK and Australia through Alex Downer, who helped to set up Papadopoulos. They're ignoring collusion with Christopher Steele, Sir Richard Dearlove, MI6, Five Eyes. That's all far more substantiated than the Trump-Russia claim. But all of this talk could go away if the FISA used on Carter Page was just declassified, because then it would show all of the Democratic collusion that journalists have been hitting on for a long time. I mean, like I said, I have numerous videos on this, so I won't go through all of Spygate all over again, but Papadopoulos has said that he never met with any Russian official, and he doesn't even have Russian friends. And then it comes out that Joseph Mifsud's lawyer said that Mifsud was never working for the Russians, but he was working on behalf of Western intelligence when he encountered Papadopoulos. More specifically, he was working with the FBI. The mainstream media would have you believe that Joseph Mifsud introduced Papadopoulos to high-level Russians, even going so far as connecting him to a supposed niece of Putin. Meanwhile, there's no mention of how Strzok's boss that reported directly to McCabe, Bill Priestap, flew into London the day before Papadopoulos met with Downer. They also didn't mention how Downer was an errand boy for the Clintons. So there's substantial reason to believe that Downer and Mifsud were working with Western intelligence, of which there was already plenty of speculation around anyway. So a lot of the Trump-Russia investigation can be put to rest by releasing the declassified FISA applications. Not to mention that it'll offer further clarity on Stephen Halper, who's now been outed as an FBI, CIA, MI6 asset. And he was the one who contacted Carter Page and Papadopoulos back in July 2016 when surveillance began, even though it wasn't until October 2016 that they actually obtained a FISA warrant to surveil him. Halper, if you'll remember, got mad at Papadopoulos after he said that Russians did not steal Hillary's emails, and that it would be treasonous to steal emails. But House Democrats will certainly pursue only Trump-Russia any further, at least until something big happens. And that means that subpoenas will be flying out of the House like crazy, trying to tie together something that they can hold against Trump while completely ignoring anything against the Democrats. So as far as House investigations into Democrat corruption, we can pretty much say goodbye to that as long as the FISA isn't declassified. I mean, the only way that I see anything happening with this is to declassify the FISA and make it so blatant to the American people that the real collusion isn't coming from Trump. And with midterms over now, it's likely that Mueller will be releasing something in the near future. So that's something that I look forward to picking apart at that time. And of course, impeachment is another concern for some people, as Democrats now have control of the House majority, but they'd be setting an extremely dangerous precedent if they go after Trump on the basis of anything close to an impeachable offense, because there hasn't been anything close to an impeachable offense. And luckily, the House isn't the only sector of Congress to weigh in on this matter. The Senate is the jury in the decision after the House votes and then gets to present their case. So nothing will be really happening on that front, I don't think. Now, in terms of voter issues, people claim that old and broken machines flipped their midterm votes in front of their eyes. People were apparently having to use another machine if theirs messed up, and everyone was urged to double check their ballot before turning it in. The issue was blamed on calibration. New York City had polling places that also reported voting machine issues. Here's the thing. We see these issues every election, and I don't doubt that there's some sketchy business going on, but I also don't think that technology has made voting error-free. There's going to be machines that don't work, and there's going to be polling places that have unexpected issues. You try to minimize it, obviously, but considering how many polling places are operating all around the country, it's only logically consistent to assume that some error will arise. And I heard about the issue in Georgia with Kemp and Abrams, where Kemp is accusing the Democrats of trying to hack the election, basing the entire claim on an email that the Democrats received, talking about vulnerabilities in the voting system. So that's all a circus, but there's nothing substantial that I found that's come out of any of that. Kemp has no evidence that Democrats tried to hack the election, and there's no evidence that Kemp tried to hack the election either. I mean, as far as voter suppression, that's not race-based, and it's not intended to be suppression. It's a byproduct of having as airtight of a system as possible. If there were never red flags raised around certain people's voter information, then there would be a lot of issues missed. I mean, it's even admitted that the system has caught people who shouldn't be voting, and that moving around a lot or having the same name as someone unable to vote will make you more likely to be flagged. And Black and Hispanic Americans are more likely to move, and they're more likely to have identical names. So if anything, it's not race-based. It's just a flawed system that the government will never work to fix because it's the government and they have no motivation to fix it. I mean, some of these people in Georgia act so upset that they couldn't vote because of this flawed system based solely on an inefficient algorithm put into practice by the government, but they're too short-sighted to see it's the government. And they just blame Brian Kemp as if it's his fault that the system is so shaky. If Abrams won, you'd see people being able to vote who shouldn't be able to vote. There wouldn't be claims of voter suppression, even though she'd still be devaluing every eligible voter's vote by allowing people to vote who legally shouldn't be. So that's all that I'm saying on that, because this voter suppression and hacking issue is one of the big reasons that I pushed this video off a day. I wanted to make sure that I knew the story well enough to report on it, and I even played devil's advocate. I mean, I read reports from the pro-Kemp side and the pro-Abrams side. I don't see racially motivated voter suppression here, and I don't see evidence for election hacking. I see a flawed government system that has no motivation to improve. And the obvious question is, well, what's the alternative? And then that gets into some political theory here that I'll spare you. I think that the free market can actually stimulate progress in this area, but I have some thoughts on this that I'll share at some point when I've really ironed out all of the philosophical details of it. Now, I'm kind of glad that I put this video off a day, because I would have missed this if I had done the video yesterday. The biggest bombshell to come out of the midterms is the forced resignation of Jeff Sessions and his replacement, Matthew Whitaker. One of the funniest aspects to this story is that Trump was speaking with the media yesterday, starting around noon or 11:30 or something, and a reporter asked him a question about what shakeups they could expect in the White House, and Trump basically just gave a non-answer, saying that the media will find out in due time. And then within just like an hour or so of that press conference ending, the headline started coming across my phone that Sessions was forced into resignation over his recusal from the Russia probe, which put Rosenstein in charge of it, who then appointed Mueller to head the Salem Witch Council. So Sessions is gone now and Whitaker's taken over. And while Whitaker has suggested in the past that the right move is to not fire Mueller, Whitaker has suggested reducing his budget to the point where the investigation grinds to a halt. And keep in mind that Mueller isn't trying to figure out the truth of what happened with Spygate and election interference and collusion and all of that. He's only focused on drawing a connection between Trump and Russia. I mean, he's gone so far as to make accusations tying in the Russian GRU, Guccifer 2.0, Trump's campaign team, and several other individuals with nothing but either baseless claims or claims supported only by people who have their hands in the pockets of top Democrats. So if Mueller was after the truth, he'd be investigating all of the aspects of the Page FISA application and how Obama and Eric Schmidt and Hillary and Podesta and their associates are tied in with this. I'd support Mueller's investigation if he was after the truth, even though I'd still rather have it voluntarily funded, of course, but at least then it would be substantive. There's a reason that I called it a Salem Witch Council. So all in all, though, I'm excited to see Whitaker take over. We know that Trump is just utterly disappointed in Sessions, and he said that he would have never appointed him if he knew that he'd recuse himself from the Russia investigation. But Let's also not forget about Rosenstein talking about spying on Trump to invoke the 25th Amendment in the McCabe memos. That didn't just vanish. Trump is sitting on that, and if he's sitting on it, then it means that he hasn't exhausted his hand yet. He still has cards to play. And I know that Jerry Nadler tweeted out, "We will be holding people accountable," after Trump announced Sessions' resignation. The funny thing is, Trump doesn't need to justify Sessions' forced resignation. First, he didn't fire him, Sessions resigned, and second, there were plenty of reasons that were legitimate to fire Jeff Sessions, even though, again, he resigned. So, for Nadler to even hint at some Democrat investigation into this is just laughable. Now, let's step back here a second and look at the broader picture after this election. Was it disastrous for Republicans? No. In fact, it might show a glimmer of hope here. I mean, let me explain why. Democrats have played this intersectionality card for a while now, attempting to divide people by race, gender, class, every single chance that they get. I mean, the fact that this woman with a pointless blue checkmark that I've never even heard of is admitting that she worded this badly in previous tweets that she's since deleted makes me almost glad that I didn't see the earlier cancerous tweets. But she's saying that every white person is supporting white supremacy by voting against her party. And yes, this makes my eyes gloss over, but I'll explain why it's beautiful to see someone espousing this kind of rabid hatred against an entire race of people for voting a certain way. And after seeing some of the leftist claims of voter suppression, this would count as voter suppression. I mean, you could say it shames white women into not voting for who they want to vote for. But of course, people more on the right aren't so thin-skinned, so that would be a senseless claim to make. But the beauty of this hatred is that it severely limits who Democrats can appeal to. As long as mainstream Democrats keep moving further left and they alienate key parts of the population, they'll be struggling to gain more of the vote. This is why they support massive migration from the third world. They know that they're running out of people in America who will vote for them, so they need to import more voters. I mean, just look at the Texas race. Beto O'Rourke won 95% of the black female vote, while Ted Cruz won 59% of the white female vote. And O'Rourke and Democrats in general work to alienate those who disagree with them. Ted Cruz doesn't. The media brainwashes people to think that Cruz alienates people, but that's not what he does. And this is a nationwide issue too. This isn't just Texas. Democrats are running out of people that they can appeal to, while Republicans are not. People just need to break the conditioning of the media. Not to mention that mainstream Democrat is getting further left. Mainstream Republican is not getting further right. But the left moving further left is making the right seem further right when it's really not. Now, there are three candidates that won that I want to just expand on a little bit from this election. The first is Bob Menendez from New Jersey. He was accused of federal bribery that was later dropped after a mistrial. A juror for his trial was at his victory party saying he did nothing wrong. The second to talk about is Ilhan Omar. She's the first Somali American elected to Congress, and she married her brother to commit immigration fraud, has multiple felonies and arrests, and openly supports Sharia law. But she won an election showing mainstream Democrats have no real limit anymore. And Ilhan claims she's going to serve as the check on the rhetoric of fear and division, even though she supports Sharia and isn't civil herself. Okay. And the third candidate is Keith Ellison, the Antifa supporter, who managed to beat someone that wasn't his girlfriend. Domestic violence is a serious issue, but I hope that I ended this video on a good note. So that's really all that I have to say on these 2018 midterms. I mean, I'm sure that I have more to say, but I'll just be rambling. So thank you all so much for watching. I really appreciate you taking the time. I have Patreon and donation links below.